Let's tour the basse-cour. A basse-cour is a French word for barnyard. Typically, it was in a lower courtyard and had all sorts of farm animals, but mainly chickens, ducks, geese, quail, and rabbits. Our basse-cour had donkey barns and a glorious horse barn. Hello! Today we are touring the outbuildings of the Abbey Manor. It's the maintenance yard of bygone years, where they kept all of their tools, where they kept all of their equipment, where the animals were kept, and where the horse barn is. We've heard so much about the horse barn, but I'm going to save that for the end. So let's go. In our last episode, we took our first tour of the kitchen, and if you can remember the stone things in the corner of one of the back rooms, this was an ancient stone sink called an évier. It didn't have a drain, but there was a stone channel that would drain the water and all of their food scraps directly outside and down to the basse-cour. Nothing was wasted because all of the poultry would be fed with all their leftovers. It was pretty ingenious, practical, and unintentionally very ecological. This original basse-cour was in the form of a U. With a wall to the kitchen, there were two darling small square pavilions with tile roofs. One that housed the area where they would wash clothes. It had an enormous sink and an ancient bread oven. And on top was an empty space, maybe the gardener's apartment or something. At the ground floor of the other small pavilion, there were two donkey barns with cut stone windows. To access the top floor, we climbed those beautiful stone stairs. The top floor was a garden shed. It was tiny but had 5 windows and a fireplace. I thought to myself, this would make a wonderful landscape design studio. At some point in time, a strange addition was built that connected the garden shed and kitchen. It made the facade very confusing because these two buildings have very distinct architectural styles. A storage shed and a coal room were the reason that strange addition between the kitchen and the garden shed was made. And that wonderful sink channel that would take all the waste to the basse-cour was blocked up to make way for the stairway access to the kitchen. The latest addition was equivalent to a 2-car detached garage. It was built with concrete blocks instead of stone and brick. This was by far my least favorite of the outbuildings. It was a mixture of the good and the bad, and that's what you get when you have a centuries-old building with many property owners. Located just outside of the horse barn was the area that the previous owners kept their rabbit cages. Rabbits and chickens don't get along very well. I guess the chickens can be bullies. So finally, here we were, about to tour the famous horse barn. Or in French, écurie. It was a mess, but the first thing I saw was the paving. It was paved with cobblestones. Now, coming from LA, we don't see paving like that too often. Then, through all of the storage stuff, we saw where you would put the food for the horses to eat, called the mangeoire. It was indeed a piece of art. It was magnificent. There were 4 massive hand-carved stone basins, large enough to feed 6 horses. And you can see where one of the horses liked to eat because a stone was worn there. There was a hook and pulley system outside to lift the hay into the attic space above. They would drop the hay down from the hatch above into what they call a ratelier, that was a wood feeder attached to the stone wall. This was a dream come true for any horse, and for a beginner horse person,